Today I'm doing a top 10 list of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, so let's rock this. Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome back, I'm Fuzz. So I've been on a big Arnold Schwarzenegger kick lately, rewatching all his classic films from the 80s and 90s, and I just felt like sharing my love of Arnold movies with you guys. I've always been a huge fan of his work, going back to the first Terminator. I think Arnold was the epitome of the ultimate Generation X action star. Yes, even over Stallone, who I'm also a huge fan of. But, I mean, let's face it, Stallone was the better actor, right? I mean, he was. Stallone's the better actor. Between the two, I've always felt that way. But Arnold had this charisma, this magnetism, this bravado that was undeniable in endearing millions of us to his films. I think he was such a dominant force for a period of about 12 years there that he pretty much owned the action and sci-fi action genre. Arnold is quite simply one of the most iconic figures to ever emerge in the genre, to the point where his films are almost a genre unto themselves, or at least certainly a subgenre. And what about his one-liners? I mean, Arnold's one-liners are the stuff of legend. Stick around, consider that a divorce, here's your Sub-Zero, now Plane Zero, you're fired, he had to split, I eat Green Berets for breakfast. I mean, this is classic stuff. Arnold gave us some of the most lovably cheesy moments in action film history, and he did it all while kicking ass and delivering on the thrills with each new outing. And like so many of you, I just have so much personal nostalgia for these movies that I can't help but to consider some of these films to be among my favorite films of all time. So today I put together a list of my top 10 personal favorite Arnold films, along with some honorable mentions that I'll be including at the end, so stick around for those. So without any further ado, let's get right into this list and see what we have here. So starting off with number 10, I chose The Sixth Day from the year 2000. This is a lot better film than I had remembered. When I watched this a couple weeks ago, I was actually pleasantly surprised. Now, don't get me wrong, I never thought this was a bad film to begin with, but it was kind of on the downslope of Arnold's prime, right? It was kind of, he had just gotten done with a pretty fantastic run of films, and so this kind of felt like, I suppose at the time it felt like it was a little bit more of the same, even though it's not exactly. There are a couple moments in this that had me, when I first watched it, there were a few moments in this that kind of gave me Total Recall vibes, but those similarities quickly diminish as you get further into the story. This is a story about clones and cloning. But great sci-fi film. If you've never seen this one from him, I definitely recommend it. The funny thing about this film is that when I went into making this list, before I had rewatched this, I was thinking this wasn't even going to make my top 10. I had just remembered it being an okay film that I enjoyed, but I didn't think it was anywhere close to my top 10. But after rewatching it a couple weeks ago, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it, and it was a better film than I remembered. So if you're a big Arnold fan and you haven't seen this one, I definitely recommend checking it out at some point. The Sixth Day at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is 1985's Commando. This is classic stuff, right? What I love the most about this film, it was just off of the heels of his success with Terminator, and so they were really kind of leaning into that whole Terminator vibe, you know. I mean, he even says, "I'll be back in this," right? And they kind of play off of that, and then some of his other one-liners. This is just a lot of fun, but this is a great film, and one that I always enjoy revisiting. You got Arnold here, Alyssa Milano is his daughter in this, and he's just badass and just kicks total ass in this film. So Commando's awesome. Always enjoyed this one. Okay, coming in at number 8 for me, this is a choice that I'm halfway expecting to get criticized for not having this a little higher on my list, and that is, of course, Predator from 1987. I know this one tops a lot of people's Arnold list, but it's never been one that I liked quite as much as others. I mean, I do love the film. I think it's a great film. It's in my top 10 list. But I've just never been quite as enamored with Predator as I have been with other Arnold films that I personally connected more with. But otherwise, I mean, it's hard to know what to say about this, right? This is such an iconic film. John McTiernan of Die Hard fame, he had a couple bangers, and this was definitely one of them. So you can't go wrong with the cast in this, the great story. And so, yeah, I love Predator. We all know what Predator is. But it's only at number 8 for me because there are just other films from Arnold that I personally like a lot more. So coming in at number 7, I am sure there's going to be a few people out there that are a little perplexed that I actually put this higher than Predator, but that's okay. And that is 1993's The Last Action Hero. This is a great film. Now, personally, I think this film was actually very ahead of its time. This film was meta before meta was ever a thing. This movie pokes fun at all the action tropes throughout the 80s and 90s, and I think it's possible that maybe this just came out a little too close to the 80s for people to really be able to appreciate the meta-ness of the film at the time. I personally think people just weren't ready for this at the time. I wasn't even ready for it at the time. I can remember seeing this at the time, and I liked it, but I was like, it's okay, but at the time I thought this isn't one of my favorite action films. And prior to buying this 4K last year, I don't think I'd actually even seen this film since the 90s. So it had been a long time. When I watched it all these years later, I really, really enjoyed this, and I thought it was a much better film than I ever gave it credit for. It definitely helps having the benefit of time, some distance away from the 80s and 90s in order to really have a better appreciation for this film, or to have a full appreciation for this film. So I think the time I spent away not watching it all these years actually helped me love the film that much more. So if by any chance you've never seen The Last Action Hero and you're a big Arnold fan, definitely check it out. It'll put a smile on your face. I was grinning from ear to ear the whole time. So a really creative movie, really creative concept. And like I said, it pokes fun at all those old classic action tropes. So yeah, just an awesome film all the way around. And that's my number 7. Now, this next one I actually had a little trouble with trying to decide which film would be my number 6 and which film would be my number 5, because I love this film, and it almost made my top 5. So that would be 1987's The Running Man. Absolutely love this film. Just so many classic moments in it. I love the premise. You got Richard Dawson in this as the asshole game show host. Just love the whole dystopian futuristic angle on this, and it's a fun film. I've talked about it before on this channel, so you guys know what this is, I'm sure. Yeah, The Running Man for number 6 for me. And then coming in at number 5 would be 1994's True Lies. I've got my little bootleg Blu-ray here, but of course this hasn't ever been officially released on Blu-ray. We're supposed to be getting a 4K release at some point here in the near future. I definitely would like to see that materialize. But yeah, another classic film, James Cameron. I'm a huge James Cameron fan, as many of you know. And you just can't go wrong with Arnold in this. Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Arnold. Great cast, just great thrills, a lot of fun. And yeah, I've always loved this one. And it was really hard because I almost left this out of the top 5. I almost put Running Man as my number 5. I really kind of struggled with this because they're both so good. So, but yeah, True Lies for number 5. My number 4 is another film I talked about recently in my underrated films video, and that is Eraser from, what is this, 1996. I absolutely love this movie. And yes, it really does beat out the previous entries on this list for me. This one has a high rewatch value. I have a lot of fun with this one every time I watch it, and I don't really seem to get sick of it. And then, of course, great performance from James Caan in this, which that alone almost makes it worth the price of admission. Now, I consider this to be one of the last really good films that Arnold did while he was at the tail end of his prime there before he kind of started to go downhill. Of course, The Sixth Day came out after this, and that's on this list too, but really, this is on this list at number 4 for a reason, and it's really because I truly do love this film. And I know for Arnold fans, it's not necessarily the most common thing to see people put this film at such a high position on their list, but you know, I've just always really liked this one. Every time I return to it, I'm like, yep, this is up there as one of my favorite Arnold films. So yeah, Eraser coming in at number 4. Okay, and I'm sure the top 3 are not going to be a surprise at all to anybody who's been watching this channel for any period of time. I mean, I've mentioned these films quite a bit. Number 3 is, of course, Total Recall. This is actually an all-time favorite film for me. I've always really loved this film, and it's just Paul Verhoeven rocks, right? I mean, he just did such a fantastic job directing this. And I actually, you know, rewatching this, you know, I watched this quite a bit, but just rewatching it the other night, I was struck by how well the effects from that time frame, they still seem to hold up pretty well. They're not perfect, but the effects really do hold up well, considering when this film was made, which was 1990. So, yeah, get your ass to Mars. You gotta love Total Recall. Just one of the best sci-fi action films out there. Next to, of course, my top 2. And of course, for number 2, we have Terminator 2. Not the best 4K, but absolute classic action film. And this is one I saw in the theater when it first came out. I've talked about it a ton on this channel. It's just simply one of the greatest sci-fi action films ever made. You gotta love Sarah Connor. She turns into a total badass with this film. Yeah, just such a great film. I almost feel weird talking about this because I feel like I brought it up so many times. I don't really know what else to say about it. But yeah, T2 for my number 2. So, and then of course that leaves The Terminator as my number 1. Again, I've talked about it a ton on this channel. Saw the movie in the theater with my dad when it first came out. It was my first R-rated movie ever that I was, you know, allowed to see with my parents, right? But yeah, saw this with my dad, and it really made an impact on me at the time, to the point where I consider that single theater experience to be one of the most memorable theater experiences ever throughout my entire childhood. So yeah, I just absolutely love this. Of course, I never get sick of watching this. I probably put it on probably 2 or 3 times a year, just for fun, you know, just to veg out on something when I don't want to have to think too hard about something, and I just want to get that nostalgia and that comfort film type thing going on. This is what I choose. So yeah, The Terminator at my number 1. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please subscribe to the channel and also hit that notification bell so you can always be alerted when I'm posting cool videos that you might be interested in. And also don't forget to like the video as well. It really helps with the channel's visibility out there. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Okay, and I do have a few honorable mentions to go over. Not very many, just like I think 4 titles this time. The first one is 1986's Raw Deal. And I got this on 4K. This is actually a more recent pickup for me. This is a Studio Canal release, so I had to import it. We do not have a domestic 4K release here in the US for this title. Now, I did just get it through Amazon Prime, which used Amazon Global, and I think this actually ended up shipping from Australia, but it didn't cost anything extra because it was all done through Amazon and their Amazon Global deal. So it's worth mentioning, this isn't the greatest 4K I've ever seen, if I'm being completely honest. It was okay. And, you know, the image popped a little bit more and stuff, and some of the colors look pretty good. But watching this, I thought to myself, you know, it looks like there's quite a bit of stuff inherent to the film that just doesn't look that great. Sometimes the image is a little bit out of focus or whatnot. I just, when watching this, I was like, well, damn, this film must have looked like that to begin with, right? Because I was expecting to be a little bit more impressed by the 4K, and the 4K just didn't impress me as much as I thought it would. And of course, when I'm not impressed by a 4K, my first instinct is to ask, why? What's wrong with it? I think the problem was the source film, not the 4K. I think the film has just never really been that stunning of a film to look at. However, I do think it's probably faithful to the source, meaning I think there was probably only so much they could do with this particular restoration. I think the film probably never really looked that great to begin with. Now, it had been many years since I'd seen this film, probably 20, 25 years. So, I was actually expecting it to be a little bit better than I remembered. And in this case, it was just okay. It was a great action film. It definitely gets the job done for an evening's worth of entertainment. When I first got this, I was thinking this will probably be in my top 10, right? And of course, it didn't end up being in the top 10. Sixth Day ended up taking its spot at my number 10 spot. So, but yeah, raw deal. Check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. Also, End of Days from 1999. This is a really cool film, a little different role for Arnold on this. A little more serious here. You don't quite get the same level of cheesy one-liners with this one as you do with some of his other films. And again, this is a little bit later, kind of tail end of his prime there. But that said, I really enjoyed watching this the other night. It's one of those ones. I hadn't seen it since the 90s, popped it on for the first time since then, and enjoyed it a lot more than I did back then. So yeah, Arnold, and you got, Gabriel Byrne is in this, and he's just awesome in this. He does an amazing job. So yeah, really good film, End of Days. I've got a little bit later Arnold film here that it's probably, well, it's one of two later career entries on this list, and it's an honorable mention because it's just okay. And that is Sabotage from 2014. This actually turned out to be, I was hoping when I got this that it would be kind of a return to form for Arnold. I'd heard it kind of was. But I didn't get that at all from this. But I enjoyed the film. It was a fun watch. And if you're looking for a decent later career Arnold film, this is one I'd definitely say check out. Give it a try. And then my last honorable mention is Escape Plan. Get Arnold and Stallone together here. This is a great film. I really like this one. And Jim Caviezel as the evil warden here. Oh, great stuff. Yeah, I thought, again, I wouldn't call it a return to form so much for Arnold or Stallone, but it was cool seeing them together, and it's just a fun film to watch all the way around. It's really compelling, and sucks you right in from the beginning, and you're there for the whole ride. So if you've never seen Escape Plan, I'm sure many of you have, but if by some chance you've never seen it, check it out when you get a chance. And that about wraps it up for my top 10 favorite Arnold films, plus the honorable mentions. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your favorites? What's your top 5, your top 10? I'd love to hear your thoughts on my list. I always enjoy chatting with you guys in the comments, so be sure to leave some feedback and let me know what you think of the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.